My name is Andrew Moncrieff. My academic background is in geology, and I worked for the British Antarctic Survey before deciding that I'd like to do something else. In 1992, I joined a forensic science and engineering consultancy called Hawkins, where I retrained in the investigation of fires and explosions. The work sometimes involves acting as an expert witness. I'm often asked how I started doing this type of work, and for me it was unplanned. I did a degree and then a PhD and then 5 years of further academic research before deciding on a change of direction. The firm Hawkins looked to me like a good prospect, and fire investigation seemed a fascinating subject. 32 years later, I can honestly say I've never been bored and I've never found myself wishing it was time to go home. Acting as an expert witness comes with the work as a forensic scientist. We start cases as an initial investigation, and only a few of those progress to litigation, and we become expert witnesses. But because we never know how a case is going to progress, all our work is done with the assumption that it will go to court, and we will be held to the same standards as an expert witness under the civil procedure rules. Most of my training was done in-house, because it was quite a long time ago, including that for giving evidence in court. And there's much to be learned from watching colleagues and listening to their war stories. As you gain experience, you can in turn pass on your knowledge and your experience to younger colleagues. In recent years, there's been a great deal more training which has come in with regulatory frameworks such as cybersecurity, compliance, health and safety, and data protection. One of the nice things about this work is that there really is no typical day and no typical week. You don't have to be a forensic scientist for very long to build up a number of cases which are active. A typical week will therefore be a combination of starting investigations on new incidents and managing the further work which is essential on older cases. Some of this will involve litigation and expert witness work. As well as casework, there's a good deal of other stuff to be done in our firm, as there is in anything else, things to do with developing the business, training new recruits, mentoring, and training oneself. I think the most interesting case I ever worked on was the 2008 bombing of the Marriott Hotel in Islamabad. I was involved in determining how the attack had been carried out and then quantifying the amount of damage resulting from the explosion as opposed to that from the subsequent fire, and to advise on how the fire had started, developed and spread. The situation was, to say the least, politically unstable and required a very heavy security presence to allow us to work safely, so it was quite exciting. There were enormous challenges in obtaining information from eyewitnesses and official channels, official sources. On top of that, the scientific side of the investigation was a step outside our normal work. I was being asked questions which had never arisen before. Then, at its culmination, I gave evidence in a trial in Karachi. And after many years of appearing in UK and European courts, it was extremely interesting to experience a very different situation. I didn't actually set out to be an expert witness, it came with the job of being a forensic scientist. So by the time I had to give evidence, my more senior colleagues had made sure that I was very well prepared for and warned about what the job involved. I'd also watched several colleagues prepare for court and give evidence before it was my turn. Two lessons drummed into me at the outset were detail and consistency. It's extraordinary how much detail has gone into during a trial. You need to be prepared for that. You need to know everything you possibly can. And you must make sure you're consistent in all your reporting and your oral evidence. The world of science and engineering is littered with synonyms which, to a professional, have identical or near identical meanings. Make sure you use the same words and phrases throughout. If you don't, you will at worst cause genuine confusion and complexity in the court. But you'll also hand over on a plate a rich buffet of cross-examination possibilities. If you're thinking of a career as an expert witness, then there are one or two things that I might pass on. The first is become an expert in your chosen field. You don't necessarily need to be the #1 world expert, but you definitely do need to know your stuff. And just as importantly, you need to be able to demonstrate that the court can trust your professional opinion. In the UK at least, the system is adversarial and it can get quite lively. Ask yourself if you enjoy debating and can do so without becoming agitated or losing your temper. If you're prone to becoming angry when someone argues with you, then it's probably not the career for you. Having teenage children is excellent training. There are many miscarriages of justice caused by an expert witness being unable to admit that they were wrong. And for some, the longer it goes on, the harder it gets. The hope, of course, is that with proper peer review and outside controls on your work, you'll realise that you're wrong long before you reach court. But it can still happen that late on in a case, you'll have to turn to your client and say that you've changed your mind, probably damaging their case. So, can you do that? If so, it's for you.